Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my screen as well?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhakti Pumanjata Viraga Indriya. Drishtashrutan Mad Rachananuchintaya. Chittasya yato grahane yoga yukto yatishyate rujabhi yoga margai bhakti pumanjata viraga aindriyat drishtashrutan madrachananuchintaya chittasya yato grahane yoga yukto yatishyate rujabhi yoga margai. Synonyms: bhaktya, by devotional service; puman, a person; jata, vairagah, having developed distaste; jata viragah, having developed distaste; aindriyat, for sense gratification; drishta, seen in this world; shrutat, heard in the next world; mat rachana, my activities of creation and so on; anuchintaya, by constantly thinking about; chittasya, of the mind; yataha, engaged; grahane, in the control; yoga yukta, situated in devotional service; yoga yukta, situated in devotional service; yatishyate, will endeavor; rijibhi, easy; yoga margai, by the process of mystic power. Translation: thus consciously engaged in devotional service in the association of devotees, a person gains distaste for sense gratification, both in this world and in the next, by constantly thinking about the activities of the Lord. This process of Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of mystic power when one is actually situated in that path of devotional service. Let me read that again. This process of Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of mystic power. When one is actually situated on that path of devotional service, he is able to control the mind. Beautiful. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In all scriptures, people are encouraged to act in a pious way so that they can enjoy sense gratification, not only in this life, but also in the next. For example, one is promised promotion to the heavenly kingdom of higher planets by pious fruitive activities. But a devotee in the association of devotees prefers to contemplate the activities of the Lord. How? How he has created this universe, how he is maintaining it, how the creation dissolves, and how in the spiritual kingdom the Lord's pastimes are going on. There are full literatures describing these activities of the Lord, especially Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Samhita, and Srimad Bhagavatam. The sincere devotee who associates with devotees gets the opportunity to hear and contemplate the subject of the pastimes of the Lord. And the result is that he feels distaste. And the result, excuse me, and the result is that he feels distaste for so called happiness in this or that world, in heaven or on other planets. Let me read that again. The sincere devotee who associates with devotees gets the opportunity to hear and contemplate this subject of the pastimes of the Lord. And the result or the prayojana is that he feels distaste for so-called happiness in this or that world, in heaven or on other planets. The devotees are simply interested in being transferred to the personal association of the Lord. They have no more attraction for temporary so-called happiness. That is the position of one who is yoga yukta. Again, that is the position of one who is yoga yukta. One who is fixed in mystic power is not distributed, or sorry, is not disturbed by the allurement of this world or that world. He is interested in the matters of spiritual understanding or the spiritual situation. This sublime situation is very easily attained by the easiest process, Bhakti Yoga. Rujbhir Yoga Margai. A very suitable word used here is Rujbhi, or very easy. There are different processes of Yoga Marga attaining yoga perfection, but this process, devotional service, devotional service to the Lord, is the easiest. Not only is it the easiest process, but the result is sublime. Everyone should therefore try to take this process of Krishna consciousness and reach the highest perfection of life. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sundhuvya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, Text 26. And this canto is titled The Glories of Devotional Service, and rightfully so. And this particular verse that we're reading, in fact, the verse before and the verse that we're reading today and the verse tomorrow as well, I mean, these are striking at the essence of devotional service. And Lord Kapiladev is giving these beautiful instructions and knowledge that he's imparting to his mother, Mother Devahuti, on her request. It's Mother Devahuti who's initiated this conversation, this discussion, this request, this quest for knowledge based on the remembrance she has, in terms of the words that Lord Brahma left her with, saying that you will have a son who is none other than the Lord himself, who will advent himself and will release you from this material world, give you all that you need, all the instructions, all the knowledge that you need to free yourself truly and liberate yourself truly and eternally from this material world. So it is an existential question that we all have been asking ourselves. Our, forefathers and generations before us have always asked. Mankind, all of mankind has been, the ones that have taken it seriously in terms of understanding what the purpose in life is, have been asking this question in terms of, how do I free myself from this material bondage? How do I free myself from this material world so that I don't have to go through these adversities, these reversals in life, these sinusoidal waves that go up and down, up and down, up and down, and seem to be going in a circle in a way. Usually, sinusoidal waves are either going flat most cases in, but otherwise, in our case, in the material world, we're having sinusoidal waves that are actually more complicated because they're going in circles as well. We go and we go and we go and we come back to the same point and then we start again. And again, we're going through the sinusoidal waves. So if we could represent it that way, also it is a pretty complicated picture. Just to take a step back, I was reflecting on today's discussion that we're having now. And I was thinking to myself, goodness, can I actually, speak and say a few words that could resonate, that could actually make sense, something that could be meaningful, something that I could give not only, the audience, but also for myself in terms of what I could take away and help realize that purpose in life, the true purpose in life. And how do I even articulate? Would I have the remembrance? Would I be able to bring my knowledge, the little that I have? But can I even do that in a way that, can be not only pleasing but relevant and make it stick, most importantly, with everyone that is, with us in this discussion today. And then as I was beginning to contemplate on that, I was thinking, apart from the butterflies in my stomach, as a speaker or, someone who is about to share in a solo mode like we are doing today, whether on stage, off stage, in front of the Zoom camera or otherwise, it's always intimidating. There's always those butterflies in the stomach, no matter, you know, how many years and how long you've been at it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be those butterflies, even if it is briefly. But then I was thinking, that is self-directed. That is putting myself in the center. But look at it on the other side. The flip side is that Krishna has given me a mouth. Krishna has given me a tongue. Krishna has given me words that I can speak. Krishna has given me words that I can string together with some intelligence that can actually put things in context. Krishna's given me the greatest gift of my spiritual master to give me the guidance, who's giving numerous lectures going around the world, making all these sacrifices. And through his discourses, through his knowledge, he is actually giving me his faith. And as his disciple, I am a recipient gratefully of all the faith that he has in Krishna, that he's placing in me. And Krishna's, by his causeless mercy, he is giving us so much knowledge through the scriptures that are being made available to us through the medium of our spiritual master. So, who am I to complain? I mean, who am I to say that I really don't feel like I can say a few words? You know, you can call it pride on the one hand, but there is humility involved because the humility here is not self-directed, and that would be false humility if it were self-directed. So it is a question that we can have, a much broader discussion in terms of what does it mean when these thoughts go through our heads? And it's only natural. It happens very frequently, and our first knee-jerk reaction is that we put ourselves right in front, square and center, saying, it's me. I don't think I can do it. I don't believe I can, for whatever reasons. You can fill in the blanks, right? But then again, that is, putting ourselves in the center. We need to move beyond that. And that's what, you know, made me put my foot forward and give me some courage. And I know, I mean, it's still something that I'm, fighting with, and it is something that I will continue to fight with. But I would also, be cognizant of the fact that I should remind myself that it is not me. We're just instruments. Nimitta matram, right? We should be acting as instruments for our spiritual master, for Krishna, in getting the word out, getting the word out to all those poor souls and those lost souls that can do and benefit so much from just hearing. And obviously we can only give what we can give and what we have. We cannot give what we don't have. But even in that, Krishna inspires us. And when we desire so sincerely and take the shelter and surrender with our hearts, Krishna will provide and Krishna will inspire us to say things. And I'm praying very sincerely that for the next few minutes, Krishna, please inspire me so that I may say a few words that can inspire you all and inspire me so that it sticks and I can do something about it, at least for the rest of my life. So, with that, I'd like to thank you all for joining us this morning. Devotional service is discussed practically and mentioned practically on every page of the Srimad Bhagavatam in one form or the other, sometimes explicitly, sometimes implicitly, in conversations and pastimes. And it is the whole meaning of our lives. And that is what Vyasadeva is also trying to tell us, this devotional service to the Supreme Lord that we need to engage in. And that should be our sole and primary purpose. So that's going to be, the crux for today's discussion. And I've titled it, The Path of Devotional Service, the 3 P's. And we'll get to the 3 P's. I want to, keep, a notion of suspense there a little bit so that we can stay a little more in tune and lead up to it. So please bear with me for the next few minutes. So Kapila Muni here is answering these existential questions that we all have. And here Mother Devahuti is so sweetly putting it across to him, and he's responding to her. And the whole thing is about how do we get out of this mess that we're in, simply put, this material world. Dukhalayam ashashvatam. This is such a world of miseries and temporary happiness. Everything is so temporary in every possible way you can think of, especially when we're engaging our senses in sense gratification. But then Kapila goes straight to the heart of the matter. He's not giving academics, he's not giving fluff. He goes straight to the heart of the matter and he says, Mother Devahuti, it is in the association of devotees one can achieve the taste for hearing. Hearing about what? Hearing about the Supreme Lord. Now, if they're not, now one thing we need to keep in mind that in the material world, in our present day context, and I'm sure it's been like that, even in the past for many generations, the taste to hear in itself, the taste to hear about the Supreme Lord, about the pastimes from the scriptures, from the association, in fact, even the association of devotees, all of this is something that is so difficult because there's so much mind share that's being taken away by Maya. There are so many other sense objects that Maya is constantly pulling us towards. It is so difficult for us then to pull ourselves away from that. The impetus is more towards pushing us towards all those sense objects which are materially based, right? So it is so much harder, and with every passing day, there are things that are constantly new things that are coming in, and more things that are coming in. There's more garbage that is entering our heads that it's pulling us away from actually attempting to get the taste for hearing about the Lord through the association of devotees, through devotional service, and so on. So we are in a jaundiced situation, and we hear this a lot of times, right? A lot of times, our acharyas, our preceptors, they're all talking about the jaundiced condition that we're in. And that is because we're not able to perceive the real taste. So in a jaundiced condition, when a person is given sugar, very, very difficult. Everything is bitter. Everything is bitter. So everything here, in this case, the context is that everything that is spiritual is so bitter that we're not able to, we refuse. We don't even want to acknowledge. We don't even want to go towards that side because there's so much resistance built up because of this jaundiced condition of our minds, of our hearts. So that taste is missing. It is like Prabhupada would say that if one were to put layers of bandage around our tongue, and if they were offered a nice jalebi that is juicy and sweet, would they even get the taste of the jalebi? No. But as the bandage is unwound from the tongue, as the layers come off one by one, one by one, one by one, slowly but surely the taste of the jalebi comes in. And finally, we're able to get the full taste, the complete taste of the jalebi. So one has to remove all of these layers of material conditioning to be able to get to the point of getting that taste, that real taste, the real taste and the taste for spiritual matters, the taste for devotional service, the taste for hearing about the pastimes of Krishna, right? In fact, talking about the jaundiced condition, it is so real because it is so close to us. I'll give you an example. I, if you remember, some of you who are listening to us today, who've joined us today, will relate to this very well because when we outgrew our Oswego congregation, which we did very quickly, um, and to a point that the neighbors were actually complaining. If you remember, the Oswego home was in a residential neighborhood, and we on Sundays we would meet, and we had all the cars parked that not only went from the inside of the subdivision almost to the outside of the subdivision because there were so many cars on a weekend, and a lot parked on both sides of the road, in fact. And so that kind of caused a lot of distaste for the jaundiced residents of Oswego at that point. And so complaints went all the way into the village of Oswego, and we would have to respond to those. I was personally responsible for responding to some of those and having to go into the office and meet with the officials there and try to explain to them. In any case, so we outgrew Oswego, but what I was getting to was, when we had the opportunity, because it was not working out in Oswego and it was getting louder and louder in terms of the complaints from the neighbors, when this opportunity opened up for us to buy this church property in Naperville, in a location which was so compelling, the proximity to the highway and being right there in the center of Naperville in a sense where people had, I mean, people have access to it. It made sense for us to jump at it. And my spiritual master, Guru Maharaj, said, don't even waste any time. Go write about it. Leave right now. Have an offer put in by this afternoon. And this was on a Sunday. So we quickly, a few of us put our heads together, met in my home, We discussed what it was going to be like, what the offer was going to look like, and we went ahead and we put in an offer, and lo and behold, we ended up getting it. Okay. So what we didn't realize was that all we knew that this was a church that was abandoned. But then when we got to actually looking at the property and actually moving into the property, and this is not just, moving to anything, right? This was going to serve a purpose, and it was going to serve our congregation. This is where we were going to have our Bhakti Vikshas. This is where we were going to eventually have our deities installed, right? Even then, we had my Guru Maharaj had actually had special deities made and brought from Jaipur that were, resting in boxes. Even then, even before the property was bought. So there was a vision already that was set in place. And here we were looking at the church that we were given, gift of Krishna given to us. And we found that the place was completely decrepit. It was falling apart. The paint was peeling off the walls. There were dozens of pews. Pews are those long wooden benches that you see in the church. They were, had thick layers of dust and grime. They were all out of place. There were cobwebs. The floors were all, dusty, and there was even, concrete blocks that were moldy, and there was no ventilation. It was like one dark, drab place. You wouldn't even imagine that it was a church prior to that. It was that bad. And to add to it, right where the altar was going to be, they had this huge, uh, bathtub kind of a fixture, a big one, a much, much bigger than a bathtub, of course. But that was meant primarily for baptism, activities. And that was so dirty and, completely ignored and abused in many ways, in the sense it was cracked and falling apart. It had stains. It had a stench. So the first thing that we did was we got all of these things out of there. We got them out of there, and we spent the next several weeks where we actually cleaned out the entire area, inside and outside. We would spend days, evenings, once we got back from work, because most of us are working families, we would go to work, come back in the evenings, and then spend, long hours into the wee hours of the early morning next day, go home, get a few hours of sleep, rush to work, and come back and start from where we left off the previous day. And we did a lot of cleaning, we did a lot of painting, I mean, this was where we actually bonded, and our congregation even came together even more than where we were. So this was actually a great opportunity. So, you know, one of the reasons why it had become so decrepit, and that's what, going back to our jaundiced condition is what I'm talking about, is the congregation that existed, with the church dissipated over a period of time, and to a point where the church became unsustainable. It didn't have any membership, so it just fell apart. And that is because the congregation then was the church congregation was so jaundiced that they didn't have any taste, no taste for listening about or hearing about the Lord. So when you don't have that kind of um, taste or the interest or the inclination, then obviously things start to fall apart. People drift apart, and then everything goes away. It just goes away. And that's exactly what happened. And the church management couldn't handle it any longer. It was a Southern Methodist church, if I remember right. And so they finally went back. I believe they went back to Arkansas or Mississippi, one of the, the southern states. And they just wanted to get rid of this property as quickly as possible, get whatever money they could and leave. So that is the kind of jaundice situation or the condition that present day life presents to us. in many ways. And it comes in different concentrations and it comes from different directions and from different perspectives at work, on the street, wherever we are for that matter. And so we have to be wary of that. And that leads to complacency. And with complacency, the jaundice only gets worse. It never gets better. Therefore, the association of devotees is so important. And Kapila Dev starts with that. He goes straight to the heart of the matter, straight to the heart of the solution, the how part of it. When Mother Devahuti is asking, how do we get out of this material mess that we're in, this cesspool that we're in, and that we have to deal with? Kapila Muni is going directly to the heart of the mind. He's saying, you need to get out of it. You can get out of this. And the way to get out of this is starting with the association of devotees. You get a taste for hearing. So that taste for hearing is actually the beginning of devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, right? So with constant hearing, one engages more in devotional service. So starting with Shravanam, right, with the hearing, you're starting off in devotional service. And as you hear more, you're engaging more in devotional service. As you engage more in devotional service in the association of devotees, it is becoming even more tasteful. And this continues. It's a regenerative cycle. Instead of going downward, it's an upward regenerative cycle that actually gives you that upliftment that you need to be able to continue and sustain in your journey, in terms of what your real purpose in life is. And that is devotional service, right? So when this becomes constant, when you reach a stage where you are constantly hearing and constantly engaging in devotional service, you start to achieve or you start to get that higher taste, causing attachments to the false shelters, in terms of lust and greed and all the other vices to fall away. And that is when, in the purport, Prabhupada is talking about the distaste, right? The distaste is when we achieve that higher taste for the spiritual matters in terms of who Krishna is and the real purpose in life and what devotional service is all about. Then we have this distaste for material things, material attachments that we have, all of these false shelters that we are talking about and that we're faced with on a daily basis. In fact, Yamunacharya is also quoted in one of the purports in the Bhagavad Gita. Yamunacharya quotes as saying, is quoted as saying, I, when I get the thought of, yeah, I'm paraphrasing it at this point in time, he says, I spit in the thought, when I get this thought of material desires, I have a complete distaste, and I'm uh, paraphrasing this to the extreme, but the point is that Yamunacharya is talking about how through devotional service he's developed the higher taste, and having achieved the higher taste through devotional service, he's actually acquired also the distaste for material sense objects. So much so, he spits at the thought of having to engage in any sexual desire or any material desire for that matter. So to get to that point where you actually have that virakti, where you actually have that distaste, that you just want to disengage from that with a sense, that is the stage that we need to get to. And that takes practice, that takes constant engagement through hearing and everything that we're talking about. On the flip side, and looking at on the downside of things, unfortunately, we are not getting to the point of distaste, we're actually getting pulled towards, thanks to Maya, we're getting actually pulled towards these material desires or pulled by these material desires towards the sense objects. So rather than developing a distaste for them, we're actually seeking out. That's the saddest part of our lives, our day-to-day lives that I'm talking about. There is all of these things that are out there trying to get our mind share, which are actually pulling us rather than getting a distaste and getting that virakti and to create that detachment from these sense objects, we're only going towards it. And then, of course, there's going to be a lot of karmic reactions. There's going to be ups and downs as a result of that. So that doesn't help us at all. But on the other hand, when we are constantly engaging in devotional service, in doing the things that we are as a part of the congregation, we have all of these wonderful opportunities to be together, to discuss together, to cook together, to work together, to serve together, to be together, so one form or the other, doing kirtan together, doing so many other activities that are available to us through through the temple management, through the congregation that we have in and out of the temple as well. We have even in our homes where we can perform devotional service. All of these things are helping us get to that steady state. And when we reach that steady state, then one is said to have transcended from this material consciousness into the consciousness of liberation, as Srila Prabhupada puts it. So now you recognize the beauty of Krishna consciousness. And that only gives me even more appreciation in terms how Srila Prabhupada could have called so many other things. But he very aptly calls it and called it Krishna consciousness. It is so perfect in every possible way, in terms of also describing devotional service. Devotional service as a way of both the means and the end, right? To perfecting our lives. Amazing, just amazing. So when you think about it, it is taking us from this consciousness, this material, the consciousness and this material world of being completely absorbed in this gross material matter, transcending us through devotional service into a consciousness of liberation. Then you're actually a sannyasi. You're free from all of the material bondage, all of the material effects and impacts and whatever else is hitting you, all of the karmic reactions that we're facing. So these things don't bother us anymore once you're in that transcendental state. And getting that state is what Kapiladev is addressing through devotional service. So it goes back and again and again about the importance of devotional service and why devotional service is so key, the only key here for us to be able to get out from this cesspool. So that engagement in devotional service, and therefore, this verse resonates so deeply with me, and three verses come to my mind, and I'll. One of them is Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam. We've all heard this many, many, many times. Because Krishna is the proprietor of the senses, he is the proprietor of this body. So when this body is utilized in Krishna's service, that is the perfection of life. Unfortunately, as I, started with my prelude to this discussion that we're having today, our first reaction or first thought is that it's about me. I'm not good enough. It's we put me in the center instead of putting Krishna in the center. And that is actually leading to all of the issues that we have as well. So while the intent may be good, as my Guru Maharaj always said, good intentions don't necessarily mean good things. In this case, we're putting ourselves in the middle, and therefore, even the kinds of activities that we engage in, we're engaging in for our own benefit. From a material perspective, I'm talking about. Doing it from a spiritual sense is way, way better than that. There are better things than that, and we'll get to it as well. But we tend to put ourselves. The point is that we put ourselves in the center of everything that we do, the way we think, the way we react, the way we respond, the way we interact with everything around us, people and other things. And it's all about me. And it's this misconception of who we are, I, me, mine, that creeps in is what gets us into trouble almost always. So the next verse that comes to mind is the Yuktam Vairagyam, right? Yuktam Vairagyam verse that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu um, tells us in terms how we should use everything in relationship to Krishna. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyam Uchyate, right? Yatarham Upayunjatire. So all these things that we have that are given to us, some less, some more, but nevertheless, we're given something or the other. It is not like we're without anything. For that matter, even a beggar sitting on the roadside, he's also got things, things that he calls his own. You try to touch something that is sitting right by him or on him, he will react very violently. Don't try it. Please don't try it. But I'm saying that each and every living entity is thinking about this is me, this is mine. So that we cannot avoid because we've been so materially conditioned. We're nitya baddhas. We've been here time and memorial that, we've been so badly conditioned over the millions of lifetimes that we've come through so far that it's extremely, extremely difficult for us to think otherwise. And unfortunately, material success is also based on that yardstick as to how much we've accrued or, how much we've acquired or how much we've achieved materially. That's how we're respected. That's how we are regarded. That's how, people interact with us for the most part. So that's how it is. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very clearly said that no matter what we have, if we use that in service to Krishna, then automatically we're free from all of the karmic effects that come with it. Srila Rupa Goswami said, Vairagyam by itself, renunciation by itself, has no value. There are people who are, will also say, okay, I am renouncing it. But just renunciation alone by itself in isolation is not going to give you the benefit that we're looking for, the benefit that is not only transformative, but also sustainable. So you can give something up for some time, but it cannot be, you cannot sustain it over a period of time. What to speak of eternally? And so, therefore, this vairagyam only ends up in one becoming hard-hearted, becoming callous, becoming indifferent. That doesn't help. It may help in the short run, but not for the long run. So the Yuktam Vairagyam principle, that is using everything in relationship to Krishna, is what is one of the principal principles of Lord Chaitanya's teachings. Yat karoshi that yad ashnasi, yat juhosi dadasi, yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurusha madarpanam. So whatever you do, offer it as a service, make it an offering to Krishna. Whatever you eat, whatever you have, whatever you penances that you perform, all of these things, whatever you give, make it as an offering unto me, Krishna says. And for a good reason, because when we do that, then the Yuktam Vairagyam principle applies. It is a renunciation done right. It is a renunciation done right. And it leads to permanent benefits, eternal benefits, not temporary benefits. And it makes us human beings. Think about it. It does make us human beings. At the end of the day, it's not just saying, okay, I've renounced this. So, by being callous or being indifferent, I'm cutting myself off. That's not what Krishna is saying. It doesn't make us better human beings by doing that. There still has to be compassion. There still has to be things that we do to express our love and affection with a sense of detachment, whether it is to our families, to our, congregation members, to other devotees, to other living entities. That's where nonviolence comes in. That's where compassion comes in. That's where true love and affection comes in, not just I love you kind of a thing and sending out cards on Valentine's Day, for instance, thanks to Hallmark. So the next verse that also comes to my mind, talking about uh, yukta, right? And Prabhupada brings that up in the verse as well. So in this purport as well. And the verse that comes to my mind is Ananya Cheta Satatam Yomam Smarati Nityashaha Tasyaham Sulabha Partha Nitya Yuktasya Yogina. And again, this is from chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is telling Arjuna that you can very easily, very, very easily, you can come to me simply by remembering me. And how do you remember me? Remember me by applying yourself in devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada writes, and I'll read it to you. The Srila Prabhupada writes in this purport, he says, as indicated by the word Ananya Cheta in pure Bhakti Yoga, the devotee desires nothing but Krishna. A pure devotee does not desire promotion to heavenly planets, nor does he seek oneness with the Brahma Jyotir or salvation or liberation from material entanglements. A pure devotee does not desire anything. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the pure devotee is called Nishkama, which means he has no desire for self-interest. Perfect peace belongs to him alone, not to them who strive for personal gain. Whereas Ajnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, or Hatha Yogi has his own selfish interests, keyword selfish interests, a perfect devotee has no desire other than to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the Lord says, for anyone who is unflinchingly devoted to Him, He is easy to attain. So that's a very powerful statement. And if you reflect on that, it also begs the question, well, there are so many people who are, they spend so much time doing this puja and doing that penance and giving this up, and I'm going to fast on this day, uh, you know. So they all do that and they are very pious, which is again being done, but it's being done in the mode of goodness for the most part. Right. And Krishna discusses this even in chapter 9 again, and that's one of my favorite chapters in the Bhagavad Gita, because not only because it is the most confidential knowledge it is, but also the way in which Krishna connects everything in a way that makes so much sense, for us to be able to recognize and get to a point of making that, motivating us to think along the lines, yes, I want to make a difference in my life and in this lifetime. That transformational motivation that comes in, is coming in, especially in chapter 9. That's the innermost reservoir of all the lessons that we need to learn about perfecting our lives. Krishna has laid it out so beautifully in that particular chapter. And so in this verse, in fact, right after the Yat Karosi Yad Asnasi verse, he talks about Shubha Shubha Phale Revam, right? Mokshasye Karma Bandhana, Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma, Vimukto Mam Upaisyasi. So he's saying even Shubha and Ashubha. Shubha is something that is auspicious, and Ashubha is something that is inauspicious. Shubha Shubha Phale Revam. So the results of both, not only the inauspicious stuff, which most people are worried about, but even the auspicious stuff. That the results of those can be completely, you can be freed from the karmic effects of those by becoming a sannyasa. Sannyas means someone who renounces. It's not just the saffron clothes and taking formal sannyas initiation I'm talking about here, but I'm talking about how, in the truest sense of sannyas, one being a true renunciate, and one who thinks about Krishna 24/7, 365, doing everything, leading his life or leading her life, to please Krishna. Everything is about centered and revolving around Krishna. Such a person is a true renunciate. Such a person is called a sannyasi. So, sannyasa yoga yuktatma. So, one who is engaged in renunciation through devotional service can easily break free mokshasye karma bandhana. So one can easily break free from these bonds of karma that bind us, whether it is an inauspicious or an auspicious activity or the results of those, very, very easily. And by doing so, one can transcend and come to me very easily. Vimukto, not just mukti, but vimukto, the ultimate liberation is coming to Krishna. And so Krishna is laying it out so easily and so clearly for us. And that's what Kapila Dev is doing in this verse to Mother Devahuti as well. So when we say auspicious and inauspicious, again, these are all done. And that's why I was saying most of these are being done on the platform of piety. It's in the mode of goodness, right? If I do this, I'm being very good. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not saying anything bad to anybody, or I'm performing these, austerities. I'm performing these pujas, and I will continue to perform these pujas. I may or may not understand what this pujas really, the mantras really mean because the Brahmana is doing that. I'm just sitting in there and participating. Hey, but I'm getting the pious benefits. And that's the problem. The problem is I am getting those benefits. It's me, mine again. So I have this, now I'm going to get more of this. So I have one house, now I have two houses, I have three houses, I have more houses. I have one car, now I have multiple cars. I have one spouse, now I have multiple. No, I don't want to go there. So we don't want that. In fact, this is self-directed, right? Jokes apart. It is self-directed. More and more of these austerities, more and more of these auspicious activities, we're just doing that to gain a better life in this or in the next. So therefore, it is self-directed, and that's dangerous, very dangerous, because you don't know what you're going to end up with, right? In your next life, for that matter, or even in this life, for that matter. You may end up with more wealth, you may end up with more power. Hey, who knows? You may also end up becoming the president of the United States of America, the most important role in the world, right? Now, would you want to hold the most important position in the world, but with all arrows pointing at you? Not me. I don't want to have that. It's a very, very difficult role to be in. But then again, do we have control? No, we do have control in things that led up to it. But once we have it, we have only so much control. We can think that we're above the law. We can think that we can do this and that, but the activities that we performed in the past that have led up to this. So we could end up with something that we really don't want. So be careful about what you ask for as well, is my point here. And doing that in a way that is self-directed is always dangerous. Rather, the best thing for us to do, and Krishna is telling us in chapter 9, text 27 or 28, I believe, is that we should dedicate all of our activities, with the intent of pleasing Krishna. When we do that, we are automatically free from all of these karmic. So it is very simple, right? So we can still continue to do what we have to do. Now, everybody has to perform activities. Everybody has to eat. It's not like we can stay without eating. Everybody has to have shelter. It's not like we can live bravely in the woods, right? In the outdoors and brave the elements. No, we need to have a roof above our heads. We need to have a shelter. And all of these things are activities that we perform. So Krishna is not telling us stop all of that. Like one of my very close, our close family friends, she was saying, okay, when I was trying to tell her about this many years ago, I was trying to tell her about, why Krishna consciousness is so beautiful and, the kinds of activities that give us so much pleasure. And she was like, okay, so you're talking about renunciation. Okay, so why don't you give your Mercedes to us? Give it away. Give away this, give away that. Why do you need any of this? Krishna is not telling us not to do that. I mean, Krishna is telling us it's not about giving away things. It's about using the very same things in service to Krishna. When it is self-directed, when it is about me and I'm acquiring all of these material benefits or assets, then I'm also taking on the responsibility of the karma that comes with it, whether it is good karma or bad karma. But if I'm able to instead channel that in a way that I'm doing all of this, I'm using my home for home programs. I'm just giving you examples, right? I'm using my sensibilities and my capabilities in terms of making the best possible gulab jamuns, for instance, for serving it to Krishna and then taking that offering. That would be, the way to do it so that we can free ourselves from all of these karmic reactions. So making it so that is really the essential difference between a pious person and a devotee. Very easy for us to, it's a very subtle difference in a way if you look at it, because from the outside it looks like, the person is taking care of, performing all of these nice activities, doing the pujas, cleaning up the house, and all of those things are good. I'm not saying they're not, but it's very easy for us to get very caught up in doing those things for the wrong reasons. The intentions could be very internal, meaning self-directed, as opposed to internally looking at how we can please Krishna, which is what we should be doing, making it less self-directed or making it not self-directed, but more Krishna focused. When we do that, then we are in the best possible place. So that brings us to the three key P's that I mentioned at the beginning of our discussion this morning. And that, so when we have a propensity to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? And when that propensity continues to increase beyond our own self-directed piety, okay, so I'm also acknowledging the fact that piety is on the mode of good in the mode of goodness, and it is on a platform which is way above all the other modes. But at the same time, most of us get stuck there, right? We need to move beyond that platform, that mode of piety, into what we spoke about, service, devotional service. So when our propensity increases, that when we want to spontaneously, when we want to, even for the few seconds, moments that we want to spend in terms of devotional service, when that propensity goes up, then it becomes so much more palpable, what our devotion becomes more palpable. So that's the first P word, palpable. So it makes the heart grow fonder and swell in Krishna consciousness like nothing else in this material world. All right, even those moments, and I'm sure every one of us has gone through some point in our lives, some point in our devotional journey where we felt that feeling that we just wanted to hold on to because it was so beautiful. It makes your heart swell and makes you feel, the tears swell in your eyes as well. And so you start to feel that, and when that feeling comes through, it you don't want to let go, but it's gone thanks to this material energy that's falling on us all the time and this material conditioning that we have over all the millions of lifetimes. It doesn't last. It's not sustainable for us because of our material conditioning. And this goes back to what I was saying, as my prelude as well. When I've been given all of these things, why am I complaining? It is only because it is my own It is my own inability to redirect my free will. I'm not able to redirect my free will in the service of Krishna. And Krishna has given us that free will. So back to the palpability, right? So when we have these moments where the heart is growing fonder and it is swelling with this happiness, which is unlike any other happiness. It's not like, the happiness of a promotion, for instance, or buying a new laptop, for instance, which I did yesterday. So these things it gives you moments of happiness, maybe, but it's not the true happiness you feel that I'm talking about, which we experience, even those few moments. That's what that palpability is. And when that muscle of devotional service actually grows and contracts with every step towards Krishna, that's the palpability I'm talking about. That's the palpability I'm talking about. What comes to my mind is Mother Yashoda. She is churning the milk, that famous pastime, that wonderful pastime. And Krishna is resting on the bed in the next room, and Mother Yashoda can see him, and she's also in the kitchen, and she is churning away the milk, churning away the milk, churning away the milk, and the milk is making, just the churning of the milk is so beautiful because she's doing it, the sound of it in itself, she's singing away, thinking, about Krishna as she's doing that. And the sound of the churning is also helping her, accentuate some of those feelings. And she's getting into it, and her bangles are clanging, and her earrings are clanging, making and adding to the music of remembering Krishna. And she's periodically watching Krishna to make sure that he's fine. And then she's going, that kind of experience that she is experiencing is something that is palpable, something that is palpable. And when our hearts become palpable in this way, then our devotion or devotional service becomes more perceptible, right? You start to realize that, hey, this is different than the happiness that I was experiencing when I bought my laptop, for instance, right? It feels like a pounding heart. The heart is going boom, 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 boom. Okay. It's not like um, running up the stairs in a sense. I mean, it is yes and no, meaning when you're running up the stairs, your heart is pounding and you actually perceive your heart pounding. And some of us are getting to a stage where even climbing up the stairs is becoming difficult thanks to our age. And the heart seems to be pounding louder and faster, right? Now that's kind of a horrible perception, but what I'm getting at is we are then at a stage where we are actually perceiving that experience. So not only is the heart palpable, it's pulsating, it's pounding, but we're also perceiving our heart. It's really pounding fast and it's hurting me. My chest is hurting in the case of the stairs. But in the case of devotional service, the heart is swelling, but it is swelling in a way that it actually makes you feel so blissful. You forget about all the other, issues, the 10,000 issues that are swimming and swirling in your head, trying to make you feel totally disgusted. And it is disgusting. But then the swelling in your heart is actually making you perceive the true happiness. That is the next second P word that I wanted to refer to, which is making it perceptible. When it is unmotivated, uncontaminated, and it is happening within you. It's not something that someone is telling you, but something that you're experiencing for yourself. And that happens when you're doing devotion, when you're engaging in devotional service. That palpability, when it becomes a feeling that you can actually recognize and become aware, that is when we have perceptibility. So it becomes perceptible. So that's the second P word that I wanted to speak about. And then when we start to make progress, where it is going from a few moments to an extended period of time, then we're getting to the next stage of bhakti. It becomes more constant. We've gone past the anartha nivriti stage. We're getting in all of those unwanted anarthas are getting out of the way. They come and then we become aware and we chop them off and it's gone. And then we continue to make progress in terms of our devotion service. We're getting more and more. We're perceiving and we're becoming more palpable. Our heart is now transforming, it's becoming softer, and it is becoming more open to hearing about Krishna, that jaundice condition that we spoke about. Then we're talking about moving to the next stage. And devotional service starts to become more steady. That is the Nishta stage, right? So, as Srila Prabhupada also writes in the purport to this verse, and he says, let me pull that up, where he says, yeah, the devotees here, right here. So, just reading, ouch, I lost my screen. Give me a second here. I know I'm going over time here, but I'm getting right towards the end of this. So yeah, so here Prabhupada writes that the devotees have no more attraction for temporary so-called happiness. That is the position of one who is yoga yukta. Again, we're talking about yukta, being able to engage, being able to connect by to Krishna by or through devotional service. One who is fixed in mystic power is not disturbed by the allurement of this world or that world. He is interested in the matters of spiritual understanding or the spiritual situation. This sublime situation is very easily attained. Again, I read that this sublime situation is very easily attained by the easiest process, bhakti yoga. Rujavir Yoga Margai. A very suitable word used here is Rujavi or very easy. There are different processes of Yoga Marga, attaining the yoga perfection. But this process, devotional service to the Lord, is the easiest. Not only is it the easiest process, but the result is sublime. Everyone should therefore try to take this process of Krishna consciousness and reach the highest perfection of life. And that leads us to the final P word, perfection, for our discussion today. So when our devotional service becomes palpable and perceptible, that constant engagement eventually leads us to perfection of human life. So that is the real purpose in our life. So, dear devotees, I know there are a lot of P's that we can still continue to discuss, propensities and purpose in life and all the other P's that go along. But these 3 P's, if I can again, reinforce in all of us, to make our hearts more palpable, make those experiences more perceptible so that they can become more, um, lasting and sustainable, then that will lead to perfection in life. And thanks to, we need to be grateful to our preceptors, to our, the Vaishnavas around us, to the devotees around us, who are constantly giving us so much to be able to stay in that zone. We need to be grateful, and we need to continue to give back as well. So that the Dani is very, very good. So one of the six exchanges is also not only taking but also giving it back. We need to keep that in mind, and how we can support the temple, how we can help the temple, how we can come together and not just think about ourselves and our own things. We all are in this journey together. We all have the challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis, but we need to also be very cognizant that we cannot do it by ourselves. It has to be done through the association of devotees. So, which means it's not only about taking, it's also about giving. And giving can be in many, many, many different ways, right? So, it can be in words, it can be in activities, it can be in, wealth, it can be even giving your life up, as we should to our spiritual master, especially, right? We should dedicate ourselves in every possible way to everything that's been given to us. We should also reciprocate. And that's what pleases Krishna. And when Krishna is pleased, then perfection happens. Everything becomes so much more palpable. Everything that we do in devotional service becomes so much more enjoyable, relishable, and palpable. And that becomes perfection for us in time. So, with that, I know I've gone way over time here, I think about 15 minutes or so. Thank you for bearing with me. But this is such a lovely verse, and I can't, I mean, mere words alone is not going to help. We have to practice and reread this verse as many times as possible so that, we can gain so much more from this verse. It is such a lovely, lovely verse, and even the previous and the next verse as well. So, with that, I'd like to end here and see if there's any discussion. I know today is, there's a schedule conflict for most of you. But if there's anyone here who would like to speak about or comment or provide additional insights, that would be really, really nice. But at this point, I'd like to stop my rambling and give time back to you, unless you have anything else that you'd like to share. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept humble obeisances. All those to Shri Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. I just wanted to tell you that I just joined the class because I was driving back from the temple, and I said, okay, I usually don't get to because I'm driving. Let me just join the class. But as soon as I joined the class, I was like, okay, when I get home, I'll drop off, because I have so many other things to do. But here I am. I couldn't drop off. You actually, definitely got me with few points. One is this: I was waiting for these 3P's. You kept it at suspense. I was like, I gotta hear, what are these 3P's? Um,
Suspense.
Suspense, yes. So, you definitely kept your audience captive. I was gonna say, I could really in the beginning also relate with you when you were, if you were saying that you get butterflies when you speak, I can't, I have the same thing, like, just when I speak. But you brought out a really important point that, it's not for us. Like, we have to remember this is for pleasure of Guru and Krishna. We're just giving back what's been given to us. So, that was really striking for me because, public speaking is like one of my biggest hurdle, so to speak, you can say. So yeah, like, just your whole class was really like, you really spoke from your heart. If I had an audience like this where there was only two people, I would have quit long time ago. I would be like, nobody's there. Who's listening? I'm checking out. but you stayed on course. Like, you spoke like what you wanted to, like just your, like, it was really heart touching. I guess that's what, for me. And it really helped to, I was just in this like rut, right? We get in this rut from time to time, that, okay, everything is dry. I'm not able to, like, relish anything. Everything is just, not working. Like, this is not working. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. But your class gave a lot of hope and just a lot of like that spark again. It kind of reignited the spark for performing devotional service. And yeah, so thank you. Like, I'm so glad I joined. And, like, I mean, it's such a, um, so much to learn that, yeah, whether there's somebody there or not, we're like, Krishna is there. We hear, like, anytime we're speaking, whenever there's Krishna Katha going on, Krishna and his devotees are there. So, whether it's one person or 1,000, I just, glorify Krishna, because that's the ultimate, I guess, perfection of our life, to always think of Krishna, remember Krishna, glorify Krishna. So you really exemplified for me personally today. So I just want to appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for the encouragement. Yes. Now there's so much for us to be grateful for, really, for everything that's been given to us. And I think that's it's very humbling, because we may be wherever we are, in our journeys, but we need that. We need that, without which we cannot even put the next step forward. I mean, it's just impossible. It's just
Yeah.
impossible otherwise. So we have
And
every reason to be thankful for everything.
yes, and the dedication, like, you spoke about the temple in Oswego, how it outgrew, and where we're at now. And, I see you and Ruchira Mataji working so hard to, like, keep the temple going. Like, it's, like, I mean, it's really just, some people speak and some people do. You and Mataji, for me, is like, you do. You don't speak. Your actions are like so much louder than the words. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what prompted me, like, Super Soul prompted me to join the class. I don't join Bhagavatam classes unless I have to speak. I'm being super honest with you, just because the time constraints and what have you in the mornings. But yeah, somehow, Krishna knew that this is exactly what I need to hear.
Yeah,
So I
believe
very
me.
much appreciate your taking the time and just, really, really getting to the crux of what devotional service is.
Thank you, Govindamohan Mataji. I mean, you've been doing wonderful service as well. So it's very inspiring to see you, come into the movement and already doing so much more than most of us. So thank you. Thank you for joining today's class. And at the beginning of my class, I was, like I said, I was reflecting if I can even do this. And I was putting myself in the middle of all of this, and seeing if I could even do this class. But really, Krishna inspires you. Krishna is the one who's giving us everything that he's giving us, whatever we're thinking, saying, all of these things. We just need to have that desire. That's all. And even
Mm-hmm.
that becomes a huge challenge. Just having that,
Mm-hmm.
redirecting that desire towards Krishna, can you please help me?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, sure, here you go, and he just gets us going, for he does that so lovingly. It's just that we don't ask. We don't want to ask. That's the problem with us. We don't want to ask.
Yeah, we think we can do it ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
We have other
Yeah,
things that
the
we want to
false
focus
ego.
our attention on.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
That's the
false
free
ego
choice. I mean,
gets
that's
in
the
the
free
way.
will that is totally misdirected.
Ah,
Anyway, but
yeah.
thank you so much
Okay.
again. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
joining, and
Prabhu.
please
Yes.
continue to join so that, it encourages folks like me and, provide some
Yeah.
inspiration for us to take away.
Sure, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you. Drive
Yeah.
safe.
Okay. Hare Krishna. I'm home now.
Hare
I mean, I
Krishna.
was driving. I've been home, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Take care. Hare Krishna.
Hari
Have a
Bol.
wonderful rest of your week.
You too, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Hari
there's anything else, nothing else, then we can close today's
I
discussion.
don't think it's just two of us.
Okay, yes, you're
Chintamani
right.
Mataji was there, but I think she dropped off.
Yes, yes, yes. And Lakshmikant Prabhu is also not there. Okay, good. Thank you so much, Mataji. Take care. Hare
Okay,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.